What up, meatheads? This is Travis, American Butcher, and this is the Meat Block Podcast. In this episode, I interviewed Michael Tesler, who is part of Martini Equipment. And if you are in this industry, I hope you enjoy this episode. We talk about salami making, traditional. We talk about different equipments you need and the process. And full disclosure, Martini Equipment is a major sponsor in the United States Butcher Team. And unfortunately, because of where the world is right now, is the World Butchers Challenge is actually getting pushed back to 2021. But no fear, it'll allow us to hone our skills and get better. But please enjoy this interview.
Well, let's say I've always kind of been working around food, whether it was, part-time over at the Lions Club for weekends and all that sort of thing. Back in my high school days, I got into the world of catering, kind of working under my mom. She was always kind of working in the food industry ever since she came over from Italy. But it was back in around 2011 where I was offered the chance to go to southern Italy and work for a small company over there where things really started to change for me in the sense where, I didn't know anything about salami making. I didn't know anything about dry aging. And I couldn't even speak the language, even though both of my parents are Italian. So it was kind of a big sink or swim moment, and I was just trying to absorb everything as much as possible, and I wanted to know as much as possible. So I was, talking to the people. I said, when can we start making salami? Because I was working for this company that was building, a seasoning cabinet, and I was like, I got to know what's involved if I'm going to help sell this thing or, be part of your export department, right? And so ultimately it was twofold in the sense where I wanted to understand the process so that I could understand the product and I could actually see if this thing worked, because I wasn't comfortable in trying to sell something that just wasn't going to work. So having said that, I know the company had started to show signs of wanting to do courses. And so I said, well, why don't we do that too? Why don't we, bring people to southern Italy and show them, how we do things over here? Because, coming from North America and watching all these TV shows on, the different places you could go to eat, the different dishes that you could prepare, the whole food truck thing was exploding as well. And you saw how people in North America were making like all of these complex dishes. And what also I started to notice was that the more you went out to like a more of a high-end or trendy restaurant, the more of a story that they had behind all of their dishes. Like this beef was grown in the Highlands of Scotland and during the winter months and all this thing. So they had this big emotional story that they gave you. And I was like, wow, I was blown away. And then I went to Italy and I started seeing these dishes that were so simple. It just blew my mind, right? So here I am starting to, try to understand this culture and see what things are like. And by the way, I just happened to find myself there at the absolute worst time. That's when the Eurozone crisis had just exploded and everything kind of went really, really downhill for the Europeans, especially the further south you were in Europe, the worse it was. But I got to do a little bit of traveling with some of the salespeople over there, and I got to meet all of these butchers because that's who we were kind of targeting. And, when I say targeting, it sounds like a very salesman-y type of, negative term, but it's actually quite the opposite, because when they invented this piece of technology, the whole reason for it was to help small butcheries. Because at that time, the European Union was starting to bring in new regulations to say, I know you've had this butcher shop in your family for 4 generations or 3 generations, but things are changing now. You can no longer make salami in your back room and just hang it anywhere you want. It has to be, within a confined structure, and it has to have, this type of material, and you have to, so they were starting to be really heavily regulated. So these cabinets were essentially built for these small little areas, and it's, when you look at the United States, the people that are making salami, if they're not a really small guy, they're medium to large scale production. And the kind of cabinet that we were building over there was really, more for somebody who wanted to start, maybe test their hand at making salami for the first time. And so that would be maybe the least expensive option, as opposed to one of these, giant rooms, or they would try and cobble something together themselves. And, that can be risky with, certain inspectors that come into your door, come into your premises, right? So, I mean, the way we kind of see it now, at least the way I see it now, is the butcheries in North America have really taken some hard hits, and in 2 different ways. Because it looks like at one point in time, being a butcher in North America, I'm not going to say it was like a prestigious job, but it came with, a certain, I even hesitate to say the word notoriety, but, as a profession, the way I look at it today, after seeing everything I saw in the world, traveling all over the place, is that it really is a noble profession. And one of the things that I learned was the Europeans, it varies from country to country, but they have very specific terminology that just doesn't really translate into English very well. It's usually you got to pull together 2 or 3 words to make a rough translation. But they have, the Italians specifically, they have this word that's called norcino. And the norcino is not just a butcher, because a butcher is like a macellaio. Okay, that's the actual specific term for a butcher or a butchery. So a norcino, way back in Italy's history, was like one of the, almost like an early doctor, because they were one of the only people to first dissect an animal and start to identify body parts. Okay? And so the norcino, if you were a seriously trained butcher where you got the title of norcino, then you were kind of like I guess it would, the only terminology that we can come up with right now that would apply is like a master butcher, like somebody who knows the animal inside out. They can look at a live animal and they can see, if it's being mistreated, or if it's not eating properly, or if it's showing signs of some sort of sickness. Okay. And so the norcino, in Italy, they still exist. Okay. And when I don't know if you've ever traveled to Italy at all, but well, if you ever get the chance, it's quite the experience, because, you can go into big cities, small villages, and everything in between, and you will find these family-run butchers. You'd be hard-pressed to find some sort of franchise butcher shop. They really don't exist in Italy at all. So when you look at even the butcheries here, and it's such a beautiful thing to see that young people are actually starting to see the value of this profession, and people are actually wanting to do this and getting into it. You know, whenever we do these shows and we start to see younger people that are working underneath their parents going into these shops, it's about the best thing ever for me, because it's an almost lost art between the fact that people want to go into, you know, maybe a quote unquote cleaner profession, or the fact that the meat industry has come under such fire from various groups. We'll just say it like that. Various groups of individuals that feel that animals are treated poorly. The thing that goes into processed meats is horrible. And you know what? To some degree, they're right. And I don't agree with, you know, the mistreatment of animals. And I don't agree with throwing garbage into food, because, you know, a garbage sausage is equal to some highly processed piece of food, regardless of what it is, whether it's a vegetarian option, whether it's a whole wheat style product, whether it's a cookie, whatever. There are all kinds of levels of food in our grocery stores. Okay. And the way we tried to structure those classes was to show people what it was once like to make salami. Okay. And so what we would do is we would bring them into the factory and we would run, you know, theory on salami production between the traditional way and the new regulations, and some of the science in between over, you know, what happens with your product as it's transforming over, you know, 30 days, 40 days, 6 months, whatever the case may be. And then we would take them up to what is referred to as an agroturismo. An agroturismo is, you know, very much like it sounds. It's agricultural tourism, right? So you would go to one of these agroturismos, and basically it's like a restaurant in some guy's house or, you know, on their property, and they'd have a bit of a farm. And so we would take these people up into the mountains where, you know, life is pretty slow up there, to the point where there's still people that will barter with each other. Some guys will, where we were going, they raised pigs on about 14 hectares of land. And they would trade with guys that were, you know, making goat milk ricotta and mozzarella, that kind of products, right? So they trade with each other. So we'd bring them up there, and you would have these animals that would be roaming all over the place, and we'd discuss the farmer's role in this whole thing, and how only he could approach the animal and select the animal and take the animal over to where the sacrifice would occur. Okay. And so they got to see everything from start to finish. Okay. And they could participate, obviously not in the sacrificial part, but afterwards, we'd be boiling water to open up the pores on the animal so that we could actually shave the pig, and then, you know, disinfect it, and then start the whole process of breaking, the first initial breakdown of the carcass, take it somewhere to cool, and then later on in the day, everybody would have kind of a hand in processing the animal, and And then they'd start, kind of designing and making their own salamis with different spices that they wanted. Some people wanted to do mixed meat or forced meat salami. Other people wanted to do pancetta. Other people wanted to do prosciutto. And so we kind of section it off, and, everybody would get their hand in, doing a little bit of work. Okay. And so, overall, the thing lasted about, 7 days. Now, what we want to do is with Martini equipment is we want to introduce some of this here in North America, because I think that, we can help people just kind of pull away some of the veil and some of the mystery behind the salami production. And so one of our biggest stumbling blocks at this point is going to be some of the regulation that goes behind making salami production over here. I mean, we went to go see a client up in lower Seattle the other day, and when I helped him input a recipe on one of these cabinets, and some of the numbers that he was giving me, the temperatures, the days at such a high temperature, I was like, holy moly, this is overkill. And he was like, yeah, this is a kill step. And I'm trying to understand, what is a kill step? It was mind boggling to see how beaten this product was about to get. And it really is unfortunate, but hopefully with some of these informational training sessions that we want to run, that maybe we can affect some sort of change in the industry. I don't know. I know, the USDA is a pretty big outfit, but if we can help people get away with making actual real salami, that would be phenomenal. I'm hoping that, working alongside Bob Dixon, who is a real big meat guy, and I think Patrick will probably give you a little bit more of his background because he knows him a whole lot better than I do. But I got a chance to sit down with him, and he really, really knows his stuff. He's a meat science guy, and I can't wait to work with him on making some actual real salami, meaning that, we'll use the recipe straight out of the machine, and we'll do it with no starter culture whatsoever. And at the same time, I'll say, hey, let's make a secondary batch, using the exact same spices, throw in the starter culture, and then you can tell me at the end of it all, how this thing plays out. And what you see as it. Do you see a benefit? Can you taste a benefit? He'll analyze the pH and watch it the whole entire time. And, we'll do the microbiological testing, because honestly, it's a small price to pay if we can actually prove that, 2,000 years of salami making, maybe they're onto something. Maybe they figured out a formula. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. It's going to come down to quality of ingredients, just like anything else. Doesn't matter what your production is. But at the end of the day, it's no wonder, people are saying processed meats will kill you, processed meats will give you cancer. You're gonna overload your body with salt and fat and all this kind of stuff, because, yeah, I mean, if you're gonna throw a bunch of junk in there, if you got meat that's poor quality, if you got fat that's poor quality, and you're gonna start adding sugar to your mix and all that sort of thing, then yeah, of course. I mean, you're not going to get a quality product, and the end user will, or the consumer will never truly know what they're eating. They just think it's an Italian product. My kids are the same way. My kids love to eat salami. Well, a couple of them do anyways. And, they'll say, can you buy this stuff from the grocery store? And to be honest with you, I really don't want to buy it from the grocery store. You know, if I could find somebody around here that actually made real good salami, I'd only buy it exclusively from them. You know what I mean? I've never shopped for it in a grocery store ever.
And what would be I don't want to tip your cards, but what would be a basic recipe for salami that someone could go and make, or just what ingredients do you need essentially to make a traditional salami?
A good little traditional salami. You get yourself. You want to get some good quality meat. Now, the large white Yorkshire or something like that. You can still make some good salami out of it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's one of the largest pigs out there. It's going to be the most widely available. So you can start with something like that. You get yourself some good lean meat. Maybe a 40-60 mix between, shoulder or hip meat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want some decent back fat. And you're going to do a ratio of somewhere between 75 to 80% meat and 20 to 25% fat. Okay? From there, you want just a good salt, preferably like a sea salt. Okay? A good sea salt will definitely have, some extra minerals in there that will help for sure. A little bit of pepper, and then any other spice you add into that mixture is just kind of a bonus per your preference. Okay, and one of the reasons why there are so many different salami types in Italy is just because things change region to region. Right? Fennel in one area of the country might taste different from, fennel from up in the mountains in another area of the country. It changes vastly from an industrial fennel to a premium fennel to a wild fennel. You know what I mean? So intensities can change. But a good wine garlic infusion also really helps your mixture and for flavor. Okay? And some of that stuff we're going to go through during the courses, and we'll probably do a little bit of stuff online in the future once I kind of work with Bob in the test kitchen, and we'll show people some free little recipes that they can try, and then we'll start going through the process of do we need to do 4 days at 75, 85 degrees Fahrenheit? Not really. We don't go that far. We'll do maybe 20, somewhere from 18 to 22 hours, 24 hours max for a good fermentation. We don't take it that far. We go immediately into drying and start to bring down that activity water level, and it's a delicate balance, right? Mm-hmm. We don't want to get the case hardening and, close up them pores so that water can't bleed out of this thing, so, it really is a good little process. And if you can start with a small salami so that you could go through the process in, a couple of days, with like a snack stick style salami, because once you start getting into more of the standard calibers or diameters of casings, then you start to push into, maybe like a 20-day, 25-day kind of recipe. And, some people don't want to wait that long. And then for other people, it's just 20 days for them to find out that they didn't mix the meat correctly and it didn't bind, or they didn't stuff it correctly. They've got air pockets, and, you cut it open and it doesn't smell right, or it crumbles, So 20 days is kind of a lot of time to invest in something that went seriously wrong.
Yeah. No, I worked on a R&D for a cured ham that took 6 months to realize it was wrong. So,
Yep. Did you do bone in?
yeah. Took out the femur, rolled out the blood, packed it in, or took out the H bone, I should say, and then packed it in rock salt and sugar mix, and then rotated it and kept rotating it. Let it hang in a cooler for 2 months, then covered it with saffron mixed lard on the open area, and yeah, it just didn't work.
Yeah, it's painful, man, because you put a lot of care, you put a lot of love into this thing day by day. I understand, every bit of it, because when you're working, especially on a ham prosciutto, there's a lot of pre-work that goes into it before you even start doing, maybe a low temperature or a medium temperature fermentation on it, and by the end of that 6 months, you're ready to cut into that thing. You're ready to try it. And then you find out, oh man, the whole thing's got to go.
Yeah.
Can't risk it. And it really is a kind of a punch to the gut, when you get to that point. So that's why I say, it's good to start off with a small caliber product, minimize your investment time, minimize the overall risk, because when you're working with a whole muscle, it's not like you started off with an easy one, maybe like a capicolo or a pancetta. You went straight for the hardest one you could do, which is bone in, and so it really does hurt when when you got to throw away something that you put so much time and effort into.
Yeah, only if I would have used like a smaller pig, like a kuni or something, ham.
Yeah, exactly. So now, I mean, with the Martini equipment, they've been trying to work directly with butchers and meat processors more so, I guess, because some of their larger pieces of equipment, I guess, lend itself more to the bigger guys. And so, some of my role is to kind of work with the smaller guys and, see what, kind of take their temperature, see what things are like in North America, and see where some of our technology can fit in. Because, for example, right now I approached Patrick and I said, okay, well, what are we doing for small equipment, like, grinders, mixers, stuffers? He's like, well, we don't really, work with anybody. And I said, well, why don't we look at, a guy like Searman, for example, because, one of the things with Martini equipment is that, Patrick wants to keep it Italian. He's been sourcing a lot of his products from Italy. So I'm like, all right, great. So why don't we look at Searman? Like in North America, Searman's like barely known, right?
Uh-huh.
But in Italy, they're huge. They're like one of the biggest guys out there, and they make some really good pieces of equipment that you don't even have over here. I mean, there's a piece that I'm working on getting into the country right now that is a refrigerated grinder, which is perfect, absolutely perfect for making salami. Because as you're processing all of that meat, you've got this refrigerated portion that's keeping that, the auger and the sleeve that it sits in nice and cool, so you don't get any reaction that's starting from the meat itself. You're keeping the fat cool, so you're not melting that and getting any kind of smearing. So it's things like this that we want to try and specialize in. We know it's a niche market, and that's fine. North America is huge, and there's room for everybody at this point. And seeing as how there are these butchers, especially the young people that want to do something different. They want a challenge. And I don't know what other meat product out there that is, at the same level or a greater challenge than making salami.
Yeah.
Because you're working in the danger zone practically the entire time that you're making salami. Going to say, hopefully that spurs people on to say, yeah, I think I can do this, because ultimately, I mean, you brought it up earlier. You said, we're making pepperoni. Pepperoni is a classic example of what we hope to achieve. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily want people to go out and make Italian style salami. Yeah. We want people to create the new traditional salami that's based here, because pepperoni, that's as American as it comes, and it's a traditional salami. It's joined the ranks of the salami world. Yeah. Okay, and this is your tradition.
Yeah.
So we want people to go out and do the same thing, and you can. I mean, you can if you're up in Seattle or you're down in Miami. You're taking spices that grow naturally or are typical to that region or that area, that state, whatever, and you make your own product. And it can only, since it's grown naturally there in that area, it can only taste one way. Mm-hmm. You can go anywhere and try and make a Parma ham. Okay, or you can go anywhere in the world and try and make one of the famous Spanish hams, but it'll never taste the same.
Yeah,
it's impossible. I mean, I guess if you want to stick enough junk in there and somehow try and simulate it chemically, whatever, sure, I guess you could pull it off. But naturally speaking, it's going to be rather difficult.
Yeah, no. One thing I've always tried to tell people with certain things, especially when we were doing that Bione ham R&D, is like we're trying to recreate something that was perfected because of certain airflows or certain things in the region it came from that we're not able to duplicate.
Absolutely. So why bother trying?
Yeah.
Why not make your own style product? Patrick, I remember one of the first units that he had ever sold was to a client up in Portland, and about 3 years later, I went to go and see him, and he's making some fantastic products, and he's experimenting with IPAs, and he's refined his all of his schedules or his programs, and he knows his thing, and he gets to experiment more and play with more different, more recipes, or push the envelope so that he can, refine the process further, or just start creating new products.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to, with that refrigerated grinder you're talking about, I just want to plug that for people, is for small shops, is when I travel or go stop in a small retail shop or something, I notice when there's smear, or when a sausage smears or breaks, that it's super visual. And if anyone who's making sausage on a small scale, if you're not par freezing during your mixing process, you're going to end up with that issue. And it sounds like having that grinder will eliminate that unnecessary step of par freezing and allow you to build myosin and have good particle definition as well. So I just want people to realize that it's not just for salami, that if you are making fresh sausages or anything, that sounds like an amazing tool to have in your arsenal.
Absolutely. You're absolutely spot on 100%. These are pieces of equipment that I was actually surprised. When I spoke to the guy, from the company, I met up with him during the Process Expo in Chicago, and I was surprised that it wasn't in their lineup. And I said, well, we got to have this thing. You have to get me one of these units from Italy. He's like, all right, well, if you actually think it's going to work, I'm like, how can it not work? I mean, it's so simple, yet so effective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I found myself one time in Zambia. We had to go do an installation of a unit in a company that are called Master Pork, and they did a lot of emulsified product. They were doing something like 25 tons every 8 hours. Okay, so the guy who wanted this unit, he was like born into the world of butchery, and it was his lifelong dream to make salami. So when we went there to install this unit, it was insanely hot in this place. I mean, we're talking about, it had to be at least 80 degrees inside the building, okay? Because they were installing a second machine that would take their production, you know, or it would double their production, right? Mm-hmm. So here we are trying to install this machine, and that's fine, you know, no problem. We're working in a hot environment. So, you know, by the second day, the guy came up to me and says, okay, so how much product should I order to start making salami? And I'm like, well, you know, the unit, this particular unit that he was buying had a capacity for about 600 kilos, so we'll call it 1,300 pounds mm-hmm. of product. And so he goes, okay, I'm going to order some so we can make salami. I'm like, what? He says, yeah, I want to make salami with you. You know, didn't you know that's what we're doing? And I thought we were just coming here to install, but sure. And so, believe it or not, in those temperatures, we actually made salami. And so obviously I had the guy freeze the fat and, you know, virtually freeze the meat so that we could get semi-decent product. Mm-hmm. And I got to follow the production, you know, albeit I was back in Italy by the time, you know, he finished his production. But I was so pleased. I was so pleased at the way it turned out that, you know, he actually took it and started putting it on the shelves, right? Like this guy was supplying all kinds of grocery stores and such. And, you know, he packaged it. He had it. It was packaged as like a sliced product, a pre-sliced product. Oh, nice. And I was blown away. I was like, wow, we dodged a bullet. I mean, we got seriously lucky here that, I mean, working in those temperatures are not ideal ever, right? But, you know, sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not like that in the U.S., that's for sure, because the USDA wouldn't allow it. That's for certain.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm also in the Pacific Northwest where it's pretty chill too. I think, well, it's cold here. I work in a room that's below 45, but if it was... I
can believe it. Yeah. I can believe all day long.
Yep, every day.
Yeah.
With no windows.
It's not a fun place to be, but you can turn out some serious product, that's for sure. I mean, I would love to check it out because the way I see it is that more people should be shopping at butcheries as opposed to big chain supermarkets, because I think it's good to build some sort of rapport with your local butcher.
Yeah.
When we go in to install a piece of machinery somewhere, I like to work with the staff, because the way I see it is the people behind the counter, regardless if they're not, qualified or trained butchers and all they're doing is maybe, slicing product and selling a few ounces of meat here or a couple pounds of beef there, whatever the case may be. These are still your frontline workers. These are still your salespeople, and they need to know how to engage with customers, because customers, it's just like anything else, whether they're buying a car, buying a piece of furniture, or buying food, they don't necessarily know, what is behind that glass case. They need your help if you see two steaks and one is selling for, $10 a pound and the other one's selling for $5 a pound, maybe they'll just go with the cheap one because that's all they can spend, or maybe they'll go for the more expensive one because they think it's better for them, and it's up to the salespeople or the staff in there to actually educate them, engage with them, to say, how can I help you? How can I inform you, as to why maybe this, do you know what a dry aged steak is? Do you know the difference? Do you know the benefits of it? That sort of thing. So we like to kind of, not just go there and set up a piece of machinery and just kind of say, okay, well, it's yours now, and, play with the controller, or call me if you don't understand the manual, or whatever the case may be. We want to engage with them. We're actually trying to work up a system where maybe we can work with a client for a day. Maybe we can make and start processing some meat with them for a day.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally that would be, the best case scenario where we can actually, spend the day, and that way we can see their process and we can understand how they do things. And, they might teach us something new and we might teach them something new, and I think it's a win-win for everybody in that kind of scenario.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're talking about the front of house and the counter help is, knowledge and personality is just as important as cutting when you're in a retail setting.
Absolutely.
I just reminds me of this very vivid story or memory. I was in this shop and I was on vacation, so I was in a city that I didn't live in, and the phone was ringing, and the butcher said, to the counter help, could you do something right and answer that phone? And I was like, oh, I don't want to give this place my business. This guy's rude to his employees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. And honestly, the small butcher shop, I don't know if they can afford to, kind of get a bad rap like that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then the other products that Martini helps bring to the United States, or distribute, ViroPack smokers. I currently operate 3 of those on a daily basis, and they're great. I'll tell you, they're very user friendly.
Absolutely. One of the things, because the smoke ovens, they're very new to me. And so when I was over there at the facility, and they were working with a couple of guys out of Idaho, if I'm not mistaken, and they were running a batch of a beef jerky, and the beauty of this thing was that, maybe not necessarily the oven, but the process itself, it was fantastic, because they were able to go through the entire thing, have a finished product in an hour and about 45 minutes. And, it was their first time using this machine, and they were like, okay, well, we'll play with the parameters, and we'll probably get our process, to come down a little bit. We would probably slim it down to somewhere between an hour and 25 minutes to about an hour and 35 minutes, something like that. And so it was so nice, because I thought to myself, and I actually said it to the guy, I said, man, you're lucky. You get to test your product in an hour and a half. You got to see how you can tweak your marinade or your cook time, your cool time, whatever the case may be. And you can do it all in less than half a day. If that was salami, you'd have to wait for 20 days to figure out if you messed it up. And so that was once I saw that, I was kind of blown away. And then I started thinking, how many different products can you actually make in these things?
Mm-hmm.
Because, these machines, they're huge outside of Italy. When you go into Germany, into Poland, all the northern European territories, they use these machines for everything. Making apple chips, all kinds of different products.
Yeah.
And so I really am so interested to start playing with this technology as well in the test kitchen to see exactly how we can apply it to different areas. And see, because it really is flexible. I mean, with the different options you have, from steam cooking to dry heat cooking, and the cooling cycles and the different product washes and all that sort of thing, I found it so intriguing as to all this technology, and the beauty of it is 100% American made, through and through, from design to build, out the door, everything is done in-house in America. And it's a beautiful thing because it's me, I'm originally from Canada, and I watched the industry of production of many different products fall, to the overseas markets. And it really is sad because, I mean, I don't know what we're going to do with everybody with automation and whatnot. I mean, when you look at going to some of these big trade shows and you look at these production lines with all of this robotic equipment, I'm thinking, I mean, what are you supposed to do with, an army of people that are just dying to work?
Yeah.
And it really is a scary concept. So when we, thankfully right now, as it stands, we still need humans to work, food machinery. We need to keep inventing new types of ways of doing things. And I mean, as streamlining our production, that's for sure, and going, a little more green. But coming back to this equipment, it really is nice and refreshing to see something that is still American made. It's made for meat processors. I can see that, meat is still a big thing, regardless of what some people might say or how people might make you feel because you eat meat. But it's still, unfortunately, our bodies are made to process meat. Okay? That's just the way it is. And, I just put a little blurb online as of this morning. I posted an article on little Salami 101. And, there might be some negative aspects to salami production or sausage production, okay? But the benefits that you get if these products are made cleanly, I mean, the B vitamins, you can't easily replace them.
Yeah.
Okay, in a natural way. It just can't be done because one of the biggest issues that we have with misinformation is supplementation. Okay, supplementation. People are ignoring the word supplements and they're taking it as replacements. Okay, I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, well, if I take this aloe pill, it's way better than this aloe drink that you make for yourself." And I say, "Well, true. I mean, if you look at the values on the bottle, it's going to be way more than whatever it is I'm making in my glass over here." But our bodies are made to actually absorb these natural elements. Okay, these processed elements that go into supplements, a lot of it gets rejected by our body. So that's why they have to put in so much more into each individual capsule, because they know your body's going to flush it away anyways, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of it all, I guess we're just mad scientists when we play with this stuff. And what's good today might not be good tomorrow. But I'll tell you one thing. We've been consuming meat for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
A very, very long time. And our bodies are definitely made to process it, and it is essential to our bodies, especially anybody under the age of 25 who still has, to go through full brain development, of the frontal lobe.
Yeah.
And that's just all there is to it. I mean, you can't, to replace the amount of B12, B6 vitamins is hard to do without meat.
Yeah. No, and that when the, existence of fire allowing us for our bodies to focus less on generating heat for digestion and cooking meat and having that protein allowed us to develop faster as a species.
Absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not putting down anybody who tries to go with a plant-based lifestyle, whatever. Mm-hmm. That is, that's your choice, whatever. I just try to get more of a balanced diet, more so than anything else. And I think that, and I mean, this is just my own opinion, is that unfortunately a little information can go a long way for good and for bad. I personally think that if you're going to adjust your diet in any kind of way, you should probably get your blood work done first to see, what your body is rich in and what your body is deprived in. And from there, you can make a better decision on what types of nutrients you need, vitamins, minerals, and where you're going to get that from. Because if you are going to live a plant-based lifestyle, you have to adjust yourself accordingly.
Yeah.
Right?
And talking about, what you put in your salami in sausage, if you put crap in it, then it's not going to be good. A lot of these meatless alternatives, have like a meatless hamburger has like 23 ingredients when a hamburger has 1.
Absolutely. And then again, you have to be careful also when we're talking about, meatless. Are we talking about a plant-based product, or are we talking about, a kind of man-made piece of meat?
Yeah.
And it's pretty sketchy territory at the moment. I mean, I would wait for, maybe about 10, 20 years first before I decided to start going with a man-made meat. I would, if I was going to a plant-based diet, I would definitely be eating the burger made from plants and not something that was kind of grown.
Yeah,
exactly. But that's just me. I mean, whatever anybody wants to put in their body, that's their own business, their own choice. I don't discourage anybody, but I mean, history has proven what was good one day was not good another day.
Yeah.
And that's why I say meat, if treated properly, grown respectfully, and processed wisely, can be very, very beneficial to your overall growth as a human being.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, is there anything you want to add here at the end, and how people could find Martini and what you could offer? Just quick rundown for small butcher shops.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, you can find us online at martiniequip.com. You'll find us, if you do a little search there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn, Martini Equipment. You'll find us out there as well. And we are very proud. We jumped at the opportunity to be a sponsor for Team USA at the World Butchers Championship. I mean, that for us is it's more than just an opportunity for us to maybe get our name out there. It is a fabulous opportunity to support the people in butchery specifically all around the world. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is going to be our chance to show the world that we've got the chops to kind of take on any other country, and beyond that, meet new people in the industry, and show people that butchery is still alive, well, and respected across the world.
Yeah, and I just want to say before we end, thanks so much for this interview and everything Martini Equipment has done for butchery and the United States team in general. So thank you for everything.
No, well, hey, I thank you for giving us the opportunity to be on the podcast. I mean, it's a great opportunity to talk to you and meet new people from the team, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the future.
Yeah, and I'll have all those links in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, just click on the show notes and then follow the links. And hopefully, if you're in the need for equipment, you check them out first.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity.
All right. Awesome. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I certainly did recording it. I learned a lot, and I hope that you did as well, because that's the whole point of this podcast, is for people to walk away with information and knowledge and appreciation. So please check them out. All their info will be in the show notes. And please support the American team, and please support small business right now in this weird global shared experience we're having with the coronavirus. If you have a favorite restaurant and they do takeout, support them. All right. Till next time, keep your knife sharp and live in the margin.